Hi everybody, welcome back to the Backseat Fighter Podcast channel. I'm your host, Charlie Binns. Today we need to talk about something that's really important. This week, Adesanya is fighting again against Nasruddin Imavov. It's his return to the octagon in a non-championship fight for the first time in about 6 years. I think the last time he fought a non-title fight was in 2019. And for some reason, that's basis for people to say, oh, Israel Adesanya is washed. Adesanya, is no longer as good as he was. And, forget about him. This disrespect that's come towards him. I think it's egregious. And it shows the problem with the MMA community, the MMA fan base at the moment. Also, I just wanted to mention very, very quickly that if you are not subscribed, please subscribe. About 94% of the people watching these videos and the short form content are not yet part of the family. Come join the Backseat Fighter Podcast community. This is where we grow MMA healthily. We talk about things that actually matter. We're not just here saying things for views and likes. And maybe I should be, but just come join, subscribe. And yeah, let's just get straight back to the episode. That we can't even appreciate our living legends whilst they're still at the top of their game. A lot of people like to talk about the greats in this sport, the GSPs, the John Jones, Jose Aldo, Anderson Silva, these great, Khabib, all of these greats. But few of them did what Israel Adesanya did in this sport, which was the amount of consecutive title fights. I think it was 12 title fights in a row. Now, he didn't win all of them, right? But the sheer ability to get in there time after time after time again, 5-round training camps, back to back to back for the title, the amount of pressure that was on his shoulders to be able to perform, to have the title defenses against all of those people, Robert Whittaker, Marvin Vettori, Joel Romero was in there, Jared Cannonier, Alex Pereira, even though he lost the first one, he came back, one of the craziest knockers I've ever seen, greatest celebration in MMA history. I think it presents a huge problem, the way people have reacted to Adesanya's career in the last 2 fights. Yes, against Sean Strickland, he came back, he lost fair and square, right? But, as we know from Izzy, and kind of hinting towards it, not being too explicit about it, but, he was injured coming into that fight. His back was giving him problems. And then obviously he comes back against Dricus du Plessis after the longest break of his career, which felt like an eternity for Israel Adesanya fans. But he comes back after a year, comes in against Dricus, and actually looks very, very good. For me, there was a small lapse in judgment in that fight. 2 seconds of not paying attention, and Dricus was able, credit to him, to capitalize. Full credit goes to Dricus for that moment, to notice, to have the wherewithal. But since those 2 losses, people's view of Adesanya for some reason has changed, as if his legacy has been affected by those 2 fights. I completely disagree. And to be honest with you, for a long time, MMA was supposed to be a place in which wins and losses didn't necessarily matter in the way that they do in boxing. And by that, I just mean to say, in boxing, if you are not undefeated and you're a heavyweight champion, if you have 1 or 2 losses on your record, you're seen as, not one of the elites, not one of the best ever, not one of the greatest, not the greatest in the world. They focus much more on the undefeated record. And perhaps since the introduction of people like Khabib into the sport, Umar Nurmagomedov until recently was undefeated against Merab. People like Shavkat, people like Movsar. There are a lot of elite undefeated fighters in MMA at the moment. I wonder if the undefeated tag is becoming more of a taboo or more of a point of emphasis for viewers of MMA and viewers of combat sports in general, because it shouldn't be that 2 losses to elite opponents, 2 champions in Strickland and du Plessis, changes the way in which we view Israel Adesanya. Now, I understand people would have seen that Strickland performance and thought, well, this might not be the same Izzy as before, but you can't tell me that you didn't think Izzy was that good against Strickland. Or that he was done against Strickland just after what he did against Alex Pereira. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. You don't go from the best to the best to suddenly terrible. It happens sometimes, but it's a gradual process, and it happens by matters of degree. Then you go to that Dricus du Plessis fight. For me, I'm obviously a big fan of Israel Adesanya. I have him right here punching Alex Pereira in the face when he won his title back at middleweight. I love Izzy Adesanya. I have him on my displays here. But against Dricus du Plessis, was it the approach I thought he would take? No. But at the same time, I think his approach was growing. I think his attacks were getting better. He was going to the body well. I thought he was handling himself quite well. I thought he matched up quite well in terms of the strength, in terms of the athleticism. But unfortunately, Dricus du Plessis is a lot better than a lot of us think, right? He's a lot better than many of us give him credit for. And with that said, what happens is usually in those sense, it catches you off guard. And, Dricus du Plessis was not supposed to be Robert Whittaker. Dricus du Plessis was not supposed to be Israel Adesanya. Dricus du Plessis had a hard fight against Sean Strickland and is fighting him again. So I think a lot of people have forgotten. And sometimes you like to think I like to romanticize this sport. And because I'm a huge fan of MMA in comparison to boxing, I love boxing, don't get me wrong, but I watch a lot more MMA. I do basically a podcast on MMA. I never thought as a community we would be the ones to put our legends down so quickly. And I feel like more than ever it's starting to happen in our space. And that's what I'm trying to change. We need to appreciate Adesanya. That way he came up, the way he came into the UFC against Brunson, the way he came into the UFC on his rise up to the top of the middleweight division was just electric. He even had that cool kind of legacy fight with Anderson Silva. The Kevin Gastelum fight, the war, when he went to that dark place at the end of the 5th round. People forget so quickly these days. Israel Adesanya was the person who carried the sport when the vacuum of Conor McGregor's departure took place. There was a space to be filled, a void that there wasn't a superstar to take up the mantle of the big 3 letters of this company. And who stepped in? Israel Adesanya. That's also when you had Jorge Masvidal searching, but really the face of the UFC in that moment for me was Izzy. The things he did, that 60,000 seat, 60,000 capacity stadium in Australia when he took the undisputed middleweight strap off Robert Whittaker, his ability to fight every year, 3-4 times consistently, 12 title fights in a row. And even now, I don't understand how it's not even building the respect, the legacy, the fandom, the just overall appreciation of somebody like Israel Adesanya. When he's coming in now, stepping on a fight night, when he's not on pay-per-view, he's not letting his ego get in the way of who he is, saying, I need a title, I need a main event spot on a pay-per-view. He's coming in, obviously, admittedly, on the biggest fight night card probably of all time, still getting his guaranteed money. I understand that. But coming in, fighting an up-and-coming guy in Imavov, still with that drive, that hunger. And to be honest with you, it's not until I saw that freestyle bender video that I was motivated to make this video. I wanted to make this video. I wanted to make this speech, yesterday, today in the morning. But as I was eating breakfast, I was thinking, what am I really want to say? What do I really want to say? And that video by freestyle bender, David Adesanya, his brother, and Izzy, of course, showed me exactly what I felt like was true, was that Izzy Adesanya still has the ability to be middleweight champion of the world. And even if that's not the case, even if you are a hater and you want to say that's not the case, and, it doesn't even matter whether any of us are right on that particular point. What I'm trying to say is his legacy is still being built. Everybody was saying, he looks better than ever. You can see he's taking his recovery more seriously. He's in the cryogenic chamber. He's doing the sauna, the ice baths. He's doing the stretching. He's eating well. He's not Uber Eats. He's got a chef. All of these minimal details are him saying, I'm building. I'm still adding to my career. I'm still pushing. And I'm trying to get the most out of the ending part of his career. Because at the end of the day, do I think Izzy Adesanya is anywhere near done in terms of ability and talent if he keeps his mind fresh? No. But at 35 years old, how long do you want to keep fighting? Izzy is a smart guy. He doesn't want to be out here fighting into his 40s, He's got a lot of money, doesn't need to be taking more damage than he already has. So what am I really trying to say? I'm trying to say to the MMA community, be better. Appreciate your legends. Appreciate the guys who have built this sport and built this brand to the astronomical levels that it's at. We're so quick to now disregard the legends of the sport. And for some reason, I feel like that's a new change. MMA is really built off legends in this sport, built off warriors dating all the way back to Pride, dating all the way back to, before that, and then WEC and, just Strike Force and all of these things and all of our legends that are still here, and people like Izzy Adesanya, who's even grown up now in the modern era of the UFC and was the star, was the poster boy, was the hero for a lot of people, to see people turn on him, not only in terms of fandom, not only because they want to prove their loyalty or their fandom towards Poatan, but we need to understand that our legends can still be living, and we don't need to tear them down. We don't need to prematurely kick them out the game. And I really feel strongly about that, especially with someone like Adesanya, who's done so much for the sport, brought back that electrifying kickboxing, that unbelievably elegant style and striking. The mastery that he shows on the feet is not common in this game. And I touched on it in my previous podcast episode 18 of the Backseat Fighter, but I'm going to mention it here just very quickly. You know, oftentimes what also has happened is that with the success of Alex Pereira has come a lot of hate towards Adesanya because they are seen as rivals. I mean, they had that 4-fight series, 2 in kickboxing, 2 in the UFC. You know, realistically, they're 2-2. You know, officially 1-3. But I feel like a lot of fans feel like to prove that they love Alex Pereira, they need to tear down Izzy, when in fact those two guys probably have the most respect for each other out of all fighters in the UFC because they're so closely matched. They've both knocked each other out. They've both gone to tough wars with each other. And you see it now even with Robert Whittaker and Izzy Adesanya. You wouldn't have seen them train together, sitting on the couch doing a reaction video or a predictions video together 5 years ago when they were in the heat of battle. But when you get in there with someone, I imagine the respect just shoots up 10 times. And listen, none of us are fighters. We don't know what goes into these training camps. Yes, we can look. Yes, I can watch Freestyle Bender and I can see the pain, the sweat, the sweat equity that these fighters are putting in. But until you stepped in there, but until you've been in there 10 years or 12 title fights in a row, I suggest it's not wise to tear them down. To tear somebody down for what? What has Izzy Adesanya deserved to be seen not as a legend, to not be seen as one of the best fighters in the world? Did he lose to Dricus du Plessis? Okay, he lost to Dricus du Plessis in a lapse of judgment and not taking any credit away from Dricus, right? But that was just 2 seconds in a fight, right? And I thought Izzy was doing quite well. The Strickland fight, is it an excuse or is it a genuine thing that after 11 title fights in a row, after turning around off a quick, insane, high emotional, high energy build up to an insane fight against Alex Pereira when you knock out your biggest rival, is it an excuse to say, he turned around too quickly and not only emotionally, not only physically with his back, but emotionally as well? You know, so you have to understand this is a different level of fight. And listen, I don't want to necessarily come out and just be like, I'm a huge fan of Izzy, stop disrespecting Izzy. Because one part of that is true. And a part of what I really want to do on this channel, on this podcast, with my content, is really be honest and say, yes, of course, I'm a big fan of Izzy. But where does this really come from? It comes from a deeper lying value that we really need to understand, that as MMA fans, as MMA media, there is no space, nor should there ever have been space for tearing our legends down. Why? Especially when they're still at an elite level, still at age 35, pushing the boundaries of what their physical, emotional, spiritual, and I guess I don't know if I said mental, but capabilities, to a point at which we might see an extension of their career, and we're still blessed with them fighting in this sport. Izzy doesn't have to fight. He's rich. He's been smart with his money. He's got a great support system around him with his family who handles his accounting and everything like that. His brother who's doing his content and I'm assuming a lot of his social media stuff in terms of organizing his interviews, etc. So he's got a great team around him. He doesn't need to be still fighting in there, but he's doing it for the love of the game because he's a real student and martial artist of this sport. And, you know, you don't want to get to a point where, as fans, as media, we're creating an environment where fighters don't want to keep on going, or where fighters don't feel like they have a connection to the actual people who make the sport. Because at the end of the day, sometimes I like to say it's the fighter sport. It's also the fan sport, but you have a responsibility to contribute to the positive environment in which these fighters are the center, you know? So let me know what you guys think. Do you think Izzy Adesanya is going to win this weekend against Imavov? Do you think it's unfair that people are calling him washed? And do you think that I'm right? Or do you think I'm just being overly dramatic? Or what do you think, honestly? I'd love to know what you guys think. For me, Israel Adesanya is a legend. he can still be a legend. And yeah, I'll see you guys on Thursday for episode 19 of the Backseat Fighter Podcast. We're going to break down all of these fights, including this main event between Israel Adesanya and Imavov. I will have screenshots so you can see and follow along with the analysis that I'm doing. Great breakdowns. I enjoy doing them. And then, of course, we will have some live fight reactions during fight night. So, as always, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time. I'll see you on Thursday. I've been Charlie. Subscribe. See you there.